among.
If I had my jacket on, you would see that I have a button and it says 17%. I wear it everywhere so that you will ask me why I'm wearing it. That's the percentage of women in Congress.
Gender is so clearly construction. The fact of having children does indeed biologically, physiologically distinguish between women and men, but it does not demand the subordination of the female. And that is yet another construction. The fact of the difference doesn't demand the oppression. The oppression is also constructed.
Powers that be, it's in their best interest to make sure that we find these ideas laughable, that we are kept isolated from them or alienated from them, and just find them to be something to scoff at. And so, you know, it really shouldn't be a surprise that up until I was 19, I hadn't really thought of feminism as anything that I was particularly concerned with or identified with, and had the common conception of feminism as like, you know, crazy bitch.
And the way people can come to a bitch or a slut and take it back and say it's powerful to be a feminist, that it's okay to be a feminist.
People supported being more of like a liberal feminist, but if you had radical feminist ideas, that was a little more frowned upon. You were making too big of a deal out of things, like, you know, talking about like oppression as a system was kind of, you're getting carried away.
It depends on the context of the discipline that you're within as to whether feminism is openly embraced or shunned.
They're not gone. It ain't over. Different costumes, perhaps, from the 50s. But guess what? It's true, women are doctors now, women are cops now, etc., etc. But it's also true that when those women, the doctors and the cops, are the ones walking down the street, as Simone de Beauvoir said, and some man puts his hand on their ass, it could be 1953, it could be 2023, that ain't over.
Is what keeps you fighting? What keeps you, do you have hope? What inspires you to keep going?
If we just forget about it and act like everything is better and everything is fine because we've been given some rights and opportunities, that it will eventually fade away, and that all of the hard work that my grandmother and my mother did would basically be pointless. A lot of women are shying away from the term feminist. They will want to call themselves feminists even though they support things like abortion and equal wages and that sort of thing. So I think one of the largest problems that we're facing right now is making people, both men and women, comfortable calling themselves feminists.
What really do you mean when you say feminist? I find when I hear people who are afraid of the term or actually abhor the term, and when I hear people who are friendly with it and even claim it or are out as feminists, that they're not really talking about the same thing. When someone says to me, for instance, are you a feminist? I'm trying to train myself to say, tell me what you mean by that word, and I'll tell you if I am one.
And so I think that there's a lot of divisiveness within our community, and I don't know how we get past that. How we have conversations not just about our personal experiences, but about our politics and what
small group conversations. I'm serious, I'm not just being glib. Small group conversations. In women's groups, I mean, I certainly had an experience similar to what Sandy was talking about.
I had an experience similar to what Sandy was talking about. I was in a women's group for 8 years, every Monday night for 8 years.
Women getting together and talking, what we call consciousness raising groups, and how absolutely central they were.
And I would encourage people not to just have group conversations in their classrooms or in their, like, on campus or wherever it is, but in line at the grocery store, in line at the bookstore, in line at the video store, in line at the movie theater, and having conversations with people when they say horribly sexist things, and it's just their daily language, and not just using political correct terms or anything like that, but having genuine conversations with people.
Consciousness raising groups and the whole community, I mean, we did things together in large groups. We got together in places like Clinton Street Theater, and it was called the Mountain Moving Cafe back then. But we, you know, we put on performances for each other, we talked, we had lesbian forums every month on a different subject, and we broke into small groups and talked about it and got back together. And so I'm very encouraged when I see that in other
taking action pulls you out of the despair or depression or sense that nothing you're going to do is ever going to make a goddamn bit of difference anyway, so why do it? I could feel it in my shoulders, in my gut. I thought, okay, even if the apocalypse comes, it won't be because I didn't do anything.
A lot of appreciation about having space, about having these conversations, about connecting with other feminists, and in other words, it is a space that exists. It is a community center. We have a lending library. We love education and information and sharing and learning and growing. We want to exist. We want to continue that tradition of conversation and activism and organizing and learning and growing and evolving. So please use our space. Please come to our events. Create an event. Donate your time if you have time. If you don't, we will take money as much as you can give. House party is happening this summer, and we'll have a birthday party at the end of September, early October. So if you're not a donor, you know that's a huge part of our sustainability, keeping our doors open. So if you are able to become a sustainer and help us exist and continue to exist and continue to promote these ideas, and to be, we would really appreciate it.